"Look at this worthless old man," one of them said, loud enough for the parking lot to hear. He was sitting alone on a bench, gray beard, service hat, hands folded. The group laughed, kicking gravel near his feet. She watched from across the lot. No warning, no words. She closed the distance in 7 steps, and 5 seconds later, 4 grown men were flat on the asphalt, groaning. If you believe something should never be laughed at, type salute below. Curious about the secret strength of this silent veteran? Hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling us where in the world you're watching from, here on Graceful Valor Stories. It was a Sunday market lot, vendors, kids, music in the distance. Nothing seemed wrong until the laughter started. The weekly farmers market had drawn its usual crowd. Families browsing fresh produce, children running between stalls, the comfortable bustle of community gathering on a perfect afternoon. The old man sat quietly on the bench outside a hardware store. Wore an old green jacket, navy blue ball cap with a single patch U.S. Army. Retired. His cane leaned gently beside him. He wasn't begging. He wasn't even looking at anyone. The positioning was deliberate, unobtrusive, someone who'd found a place to rest without interfering with the flow of market activity around him. His posture spoke of patient waiting rather than need. Hands folded, eyes forward, the quiet dignity of someone comfortable with solitude. A group of 4 men in their late 20s walked by, loud, drinks in hand, dirt on their boots like they wanted it to show. Their approach was boisterous, attention-seeking, the kind of performance that suggested they were looking for an audience for whatever entertainment they were planning. "Look at this guy," the tallest one smirked, "probably waiting for a sympathy check." The comment was deliberately loud, designed to be overheard by both the target and the surrounding crowd. "That uniform hat's probably fake," another added. Stolen valor. The accusation carried particular cruelty, questioning not just the man's current circumstances, but the authenticity of his service and sacrifice. The third one kicked the gravel toward his boots. He even got the limp down, real method actor. Physical harassment, escalating the confrontation from verbal mockery to minor assault. They laughed hard. The entertainment value they derived from their cruelty was evident to everyone within earshot. The old man didn't look up. His eyes stared straight ahead at nothing. His response was complete non-engagement, someone who'd learned that dignity meant not responding to provocation. A little boy walked past and looked at him with confusion. The child's innocent curiosity about the interaction between adults and the strange behavior of the group. One of the men leaned down to the kid. "Want to know what failure looks like right there, champ?" Using a child as an additional tool for humiliation, teaching disrespect to the next generation. More laughter. Ever wonder what happens when someone stands up to bullies like this? Stick with us, the outcome will shock you, here on Graceful Valor Stories. On the other side of the lot, near a silver pickup, she heard everything. Sergeant Maria Vance had been loading groceries into her truck when the harassment began. Her position provided clear line of sight to the developing situation. She wasn't in uniform. Cargo pants, plain shirt, a satchel slung low, boots tight, hair tied back. Her civilian appearance masked military bearing that was evident to trained observers, posture, movement patterns, and equipment choices that suggested professional background. She closed the truck door slowly, adjusted the strap on her shoulder, took exactly 7 steps towards them. Her approach was measured, deliberate. Someone calculating distance, timing, and tactical options rather than reacting emotionally. Didn't say a word. The 4th man noticed her first. "Hey, relax, lady. He ain't your girl." Wham! He was on the ground when knocked out, legs folded under him. The strike was precise, efficient, targeted to incapacitate without causing permanent injury. The second one turned. She pivoted, swept his knees with a single kick, and dropped him flat. Combat techniques applied with surgical precision, movement that suggested extensive training and recent practice. The tallest tried to lunge. She sidestepped and used his own momentum to send him face first into the bench post. Defensive techniques that turned his aggression against him. Classic military police training applied to civilian situation. The old man never moved. The last guy froze, wide-eyed, hands up. That's when he saw what slipped out of her shirt just for a second. A badge, military police, active reserve.
Recognition that he'd encountered someone whose authority exceeded local jurisdiction and whose training exceeded his ability to challenge. Police were called, but the responding deputy already knew her. "Sergeant Vance?" he asked, approaching her calmly. "You good?" Deputy Martinez had worked with military police during joint operations and recognized her immediately. She nodded, didn't even break a sweat. Her response was matter-of-fact, professional. Someone for whom this level of physical intervention was routine rather than exceptional. The deputy looked at the four groaning men. "What happened?" "They tripped," she said flatly, "on disrespect." Her explanation was technically accurate while avoiding details that might complicate official reporting. While medics checked the men, the crowd began to murmur. Bystanders who'd witnessed the confrontation were processing what they'd seen. Swift, decisive action that had transformed harassment into consequence. The old man stood up slowly. "Didn't need help," he muttered. Master Sergeant Elias Boone's pride remained intact despite his gratitude for the intervention. She turned. "Didn't say you did, sir." Respectful acknowledgement that honored his dignity while maintaining her decision to act. One of the officers noticed the patch on his jacket sleeve, barely sewn in, faded, 3rd Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment. Recognition of elite military unit designation that suggested combat experience far beyond normal service. "Sir, were you in 89 Panama?" The question reflected knowledge of Ranger operations during Operation Just Cause. Specific historical reference that carried weight for military personnel. The old man didn't answer, just looked off. His silence suggested memories that couldn't be easily discussed in public settings. She spoke for him. "His name is Elias Boone, Master Sergeant. He led a team through the jungle when every radio went dark. Everyone thought they were dead for 3 days. Information that revealed the scope of his service and the nature of operations that had earned his rank and reputation." "And they weren't?" someone asked.
No, they just finished the mission before the extraction showed up. The explanation captured the essence of Ranger mentality, mission completion regardless of communication failures or support difficulties. The crowd went quiet, understanding that they'd witnessed harassment of someone whose service record exceeded their imagination. The four men, now sitting upright with ice packs, started realizing who they had mocked. Recognition dawning that their target had been someone whose contributions to national security deserve respect rather than ridicule. One mumbled, "We didn't know." She crouched next to him. "That's the problem. You never ask. You just assume someone who's quiet must be nothing." Teaching moment about the danger of assumptions and the value of humility when encountering strangers. "We were just joking." No, you were testing if anyone would stop you, and now you found out. Correction that revealed the true nature of their behavior. Systematic harassment rather than innocent humor. The deputy looked at her. "What do you want done here?" Official recognition that her intervention had been justified and that consequences were her decision. She stood up. "Nothing. Let them sit with it." Justice through natural consequences rather than formal punishment, allowing shame and embarrassment to serve as education. But then she turned to the crowd. "There are men walking around with scars under their shirts, medals in their drawers, and silence in their mouths. You don't get to decide their worth." Public education about the invisible nature of military service and sacrifice. Recognition that heroism often wears civilian clothes and speaks in quiet voices. The message resonated through the crowd, creating understanding that would outlast the immediate incident. Because sometimes the most important lessons were taught not in classrooms, but in parking lots where dignity was defended through action rather than words, where respect was enforced not through regulation, but through recognition that some things were worth fighting for. She helped Elias back to the bench, gave him water, sat beside him. The gesture was respectful, practical, someone ensuring that dignity was restored along with physical comfort. He didn't look at her, just said, "You didn't have to do that." His gratitude was mixed with pride, appreciation for her intervention tempered by his independence. "Didn't do it for you," she smirked. "Did it for me. I owe you." The response revealed personal motivation beyond general principle, a debt that connected their service across different eras. "You were just a kid. How would you even remember?" His confusion suggested he didn't recognize her or understand the connection she was claiming. "I wasn't a kid when I read your file." Professional knowledge rather than personal encounter.
Military records that had shaped her understanding of leadership and operational excellence that caught him. She continued, "You trained my commanding officer. The way he planned raids kept us alive in Kandahar. That was your blueprint." The legacy connection revealed how military knowledge transferred across generations. Techniques and principles that saved lives long after their originators had left active service. Elias blinked. For a second, there was silence between them that said more than words, understanding that his contributions had continued to protect people years after his retirement. Recognition that his methods had become part of institutional knowledge that kept soldiers alive. "UMP, now reserve," she said. "They pull me in when stupid gets loud." Her role description captured both her official function and her personal mission. Someone activated when situations required military police expertise. A few vendors clapped from behind their stalls. Recognition from the community that had witnessed the confrontation and understood its significance. One of the kids handed Elias a bottle of Gatorade and said, "Thanks for being a soldier, mister." Innocent gratitude that honored his service without understanding its full scope. The kind of recognition that meant more than formal ceremonies. Elias nodded, didn't smile, just squeezed the bottle gently. Acceptance of appreciation without false modesty or excessive emotion. Dignity that characterized his entire approach to both service and recognition. "You still got that picture?" she asked. Reference to documentation that connected him to specific operations and personnel. Evidence of missions that couldn't be publicly acknowledged. He reached into his jacket, pulled out a folded, sun-faded photo. 8 men in mud, one holding a tiny radio. Visual documentation of operations that existed only in memory and classified records. Evidence of teamwork under conditions that tested every aspect of military training. "Only one still around," he said. Recognition of mortality that affected all veterans. The gradual loss of those who shared experiences that couldn't be fully communicated to others. "You are," she answered, "and that's enough." Validation that his survival carried meaning beyond personal achievement. Recognition that his continued existence preserved knowledge, experience, and memory that served ongoing military operations. No crowd, no medals, just 2 generations on a bench finally aligned. The moment represented connection across military service eras. Understanding that transcended rank, unit, and time period because some conversations happened not in official settings, but in quiet moments where mutual respect allowed truth to be acknowledged. Some recognition came not through ceremonies, but through personal understanding of how individual contributions shape collective capability. And some gratitude was expressed not through formal channels, but through actions that demonstrated that service was remembered, honored, and continued by those who followed. Sergeant Vance and Master Sergeant Boone represented continuity of military values across generations. Training that preserved life through knowledge passed from one warrior to another. Recognition that veterans carried forward not just their own experience, but responsibility for those who would follow their example. The bench where they sat represented more than a rest stop. It was a place where military legacy was acknowledged, respected, and transmitted to those who would carry it forward. By the time the sun dipped, the 4 men were gone, taken home bruised and humiliated. No charges were filed, just silence left behind. The natural consequences of their actions had proven more educational than legal proceedings. Embarrassment and physical discomfort serving as more effective deterrent than formal punishment. The crowd had dispersed, but they didn't forget. Witnesses carried the story with them. Understanding that had been gained through witnessing respect defended and dignity restored. A week later, the bench Elias had sat on was replaced. New wood, reinforced legs, brass plate at the top. Master Sergeant Elias Boone served quiet, fought loud. Mock at your own risk. Community recognition that honored his service while warning against future disrespect. Memorial that educated while it commemorated. She passed it on a run one morning. Saw a man and his son reading the plaque. Sergeant Vance's daily routine brought her past the memorial that her actions had inspired. Evidence that defending dignity had created lasting recognition. She nodded. They nodded back. Mutual acknowledgement between strangers who understood the significance of what the memorial represented. And across town, the 4 men from the parking lot had stopped laughing at anything for a while, especially at strangers wearing old boots in silence. Behavioral modification that extended beyond the immediate incident. Recognition that assumptions about others carried risks they hadn't previously considered. He didn't have to prove anything. She just reminded them who he was. Subscribe for more stories that silence the foolish only on Graceful Valor Stories. Because somewhere in communities across the nation, veterans sit quietly on benches, not seeking recognition for their service, not demanding acknowledgement of their sacrifice, just existing with dignity that others sometimes fail to recognize.